What's up? This is Trey T, and today I'm going to discuss how it's about time the NFL changed to a 16-team playoff format. Currently, the NBA and the NHL are the only ones to run a 16-team playoff format. The NFL has a 14-team playoff format, and the MLB has just decided this year that they will go from a 10-team playoff format to a 12-team playoff format. Basically, kind of like how the NFL used to be for like 20 years, to where it's 12 teams and you got wild cards and first and second seed get a bye and stuff like that. For the last few years now, watching the NFL playoffs, I've been sitting back and thinking like it's time for like when it was 12 teams before they moved it to 14 teams. I'm sitting back thinking like it's time like for the NFL to do like the NBA and the NHL and go to a 16-team playoff format. And I already know what some people are gonna say. Like I've had this discussion with so many people, and a lot of them say the exact same thing over and over and over. In discussions I've had with people about changing the NFL playoff format to 16 teams instead of 12 or 14, the main thing I always hear, oh, well, if you do that, that'll water down the playoffs. They don't have enough good teams in the playoffs for you to have 16 teams, 8 on both sides, or you don't have enough quarterback talent on both sides for it to be 16-team playoff. To me, the reason why the whole talent argument gets thrown out the window is because the difference between the NFL and the NBA and the NHL is in those leagues, the NBA and the NHL, they play series. Now, if you were playing series in the NFL and you were trying to do 16-team playoffs format, then yeah, you would have me. But in the NFL, the beauty about the NFL playoffs, it's one and done. Any team you have one bad playoff game and you can go home. That's why they call it any given Sunday. It don't matter if you a 6 seed going against a 1 seed. If that 1 seed has a bad game, they have a possibility of going home. See, in the NBA, that 1 seed can have one bad game because they still got 4 other games to win that they can win to win the series. But you don't have that in the NFL. You have one bad game, you going home. And we've seen that numerous times in the NFL where number 1 seed has been knocked off. It's much easier to knock off a number 1 seed in the NFL playoffs than it is to knock off a number 1 seed in the NBA playoffs. Before I go in depth on how I feel the 16-team playoffs should look like, I'm going to give a brief history of the NFL playoffs. From 1970 through 1977, it was an 8-team playoff format. There were no wildcard teams. It was just 4 divisional games, then the 2 conference championship games, then the Super Bowl. In 1978 to 1989, they added 2 more teams, and then with the 2 more teams, they made 4 wildcard teams. And then from 1990 to 2019, they added 2 more teams, which made it 8 wildcard teams. And now we have the current system where you have 12 wildcard teams. They added 2 more teams. I wasn't born yet, but going back through the history books, I was happy to see that my wish had came true at one point in time. During the 1982 season, it was a player strike, and they only played 9 games in a regular season. So for the playoffs, they actually had a 16-team playoff format, and they called it a Super Bowl tournament. So in 1982 was the only time in the history of the NFL where they did play a 16-team playoff format. So here we go. If it were up to me, this is how I would have the NFL season. The NFL is all about making money. That's why they added that extra game to make it 17 games. I feel like 17 games is way too much. Like on the NFL players' bodies, they already getting concussions and stuff. Ended up with CTE and all that. So adding more games, I don't feel like adding to the regular season. Adding more games just because you're trying to make some more money. I don't like that, because in the long run, when more and more players get CTE, then they try to sue the NFL. But anyway, so what I would do is I would have the preseason to where the preseason is, all right, the preseason would be 3 games. And in those 3 games, the first game, I would have it to where the starters played like 3 series in the first game. The second game, preseason game, I would have it to where the starters played at least the first quarter. And then the third game, I would have the starters play at least 1 or 2 series. So that, and then the rest of the game is to fill out your roster with your rookies and the other people just trying to make the team. And then we go to the regular season. I would take it back to a 16-game regular season where all 32 teams get a bye during the 16-game season. And during the playoffs, after week 17, that would be the last week of the regular season. After that week, I would give all 16 teams that made the playoffs that next week off so they can all rest and recuperate and recover. So that goes for all the people who say, well, that means the number 1 seed won't get a bye. There goes your bye right there. The only difference is, instead of only 1 team getting a bye, everybody gets a bye. First off, let's get something straight. I don't feel like professional teams should get byes in the playoffs. I feel like you should have to play to prove that you're really deserving of the championship. I feel like you should have to play every round. If you end up as a champion, I feel like you should have had to play every round. You're a professional team. You shouldn't get no damn bye. Well, that's their reward for having the best record. No, your reward for having the best record should be that you got home field advantage throughout the playoffs until you get to the Super Bowl. Just giving them a bye is double rewarding them. It's kind of like how I don't feel like the team with the worst record in the NFL deserves to get the number 1 pick. Why would you reward a sorry team for being sorry, so where they can get a draft pick and then that draft pick ends up going to a sorry team, and if they don't turn that franchise around in 3 or 4 years, they're labeled a bust? No, I don't like rewarding people for playing bad, and you shouldn't be double rewarded because you had the number 1 seed. So after week 17, all 16 playoff teams get a bye. 8 playoff teams on the AFC, 8 playoff teams on the NFC. I would have it to where you go by the overall record. No more, division winners automatically get to host a home playoff game. No, that's bullshit, because you can end up playing in a trash division and you win a trash division on some Dallas Cowboys type shit where you can end up 8-8 and you get the host to where you're 8-8 and somebody have to come to you and they 10-6. That's like, okay, the Saints being 10-6, having to go play at Dallas in the playoffs, and the Cowboys were 8-8. I don't think that shit is fair. I feel like it should go by the best overall record for the top 8 in the AFC, top 8 in the NFC. Go by the best overall record. The top 4 who have the best record, those are the ones who get the home playoffs. And the bottom 4 got to go on the road. The playoff format would go, the 1 seed would play the 8 seed, the 4 play the 5, the 3 play the 6, the 2 play the 7. My whole main thing is I want the playoffs to be even. No more of this bullshit where, you got to wait for, if the lower seed wins, then they go here. If the higher seed wins, they go here. Fuck that shit. You should already know who you're playing in the next round. Hey, All right, if we win this, we either playing this person or this person. No more. Okay, if the 6 seed loses, then the 5 seed go plays the 2 seed, and none of that bullshit. So 1 play 8, 2 play 7, 3 play 6, and 4 play 5. So I would have it to where that Saturday, it would be 3 games on Saturday. For the wild card weekend, it would be 3 games on Saturday, 3 games on Sunday, and then you would have 2 games on Monday. And then after that week, the playoffs are just like normal. It would be the divisional round where you can go back to, it'll probably be 3 on Saturday and Sunday then. But still, the only thing that you're really changing is that the number 1 seeds have to play in the first round. That's really the only thing you're changing. That the number 1 seeds have to play in the first round and they playing against 8 seeds. That's really the only difference. You're not adding any extra rounds. It's still 4 rounds, wild card, divisional, conference championship, Super Bowl. It's still 4 rounds. It's just the number 1 seed has to play in the first round. I want to do it this way because it's been too many years to where you have teams with bad records that can be like 7-9 or 8-8 make the playoffs, but somebody who's 10-6 or 9-7 miss the playoffs. But because that 8-8 or 7-9 team won that division, they automatically get. Not only do they make the playoffs, but they automatically get to host the playoff game after going 7-9. That's my problem with the whole playoff thing. And I don't like buys that you automatically get a bye in the first round. And the reason why is because I feel like the teams that get a bye, that bye actually, I've seen it a lot. Trust me, as a Bronco fan, I've seen it a lot. That bye actually comes back to hurt people a lot of the times. Especially if you already have the number 1 seeds locked up, and those people usually just rest their players in the last week of the season. So basically, okay, you rest your players the last week of the season, then you get a bye, and then you play in the division round. So basically, your team goes like 18 days without playing, and the team that you end up playing is usually somebody who come in on like a 5 or 6 game hot streak, and you've been off for 18 days, and you go out there in the very first game, you lose. Look what happened last year. Both number 1 seed, they got a bye. Everybody keep crying about, oh, well, the number 1 seed, they deserve a bye. You got a bye. Both number 1 seeds got a bye this past season. Cincinnati beat Tennessee, and Green Bay lost to San Francisco. Both teams got a bye, and they lost their very first playoff game. That's why the whole first round bye stuff is very overrated. The crazy thing is, not only did they get a bye, but both teams, the first game they played, they came out looking rusty as hell. Both Tennessee and Green Bay looked rusty. Their offense was horrible. And Tennessee Cincinnati ran all over Tennessee. They just walked all over them, even though Tennessee sacked Joe Burrow 9 times. But Green Bay offense couldn't get in sync. And we saw the same thing happen to Baltimore in 2019. The last game of the season, they ended up 14-2. They won the last game of the season versus Pittsburgh 28-12, but they didn't play a lot of the starters. So RG3 was in the game for Lamar Jackson. So they didn't play week 17, and then they had a bye, so they didn't play during the wild card week. So then they played Tennessee, who was fresh off of beating New England in the wild card round. So you know Tennessee is pumped. They just knocked off Tom Brady, made Tom Brady leave New England to go to Tampa Bay. And then Tennessee goes to Baltimore and goes up on Baltimore 28-6, beating the shit out of the Ravens. Because the Ravens looked so out of sync because they hadn't played in like 18 days. They hadn't played a meaningful game against real competition in like 18 days. So that's why the whole, get a number 1 seed and you get the week off and blah, 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 blah. That shit don't always work. Trust me, as a Bronco fan, the Broncos had a bye both times with Peyton Manning, and they lost against Baltimore the very first game, and then they lost against Indianapolis the very first game. So that bye shit is very overrated. That's why I say after week 17, everybody should get a bye. All 16 teams that made the playoffs, everybody start out fresh, start at the same time. And then everybody loves the NFL playoffs. So why wouldn't you want two more teams in the playoffs? You would get you would get more money from those two extra playoff games. And those fans, like a couple of years ago, Pittsburgh could have made the playoffs, but they didn't. You know how loyal Pittsburgh Steelers fans are. You know how much money the NFL would have made if Pittsburgh would have made the playoffs and the fans bought all those tickets and all that. That is why the most logical thing is to go to a 16-team playoffs. And this year, I'm just going off paper, but this year seems like the deepest I've seen the NFL in so many fucking years. The AFC, if we just going by paper, right now the AFC is loaded. And you only gonna have 7 teams make the playoffs. Like, out of the AFC, I see at least 12 teams that have a legit chance of being top 4 teams in the AFC. Buffalo, like you saw what Buffalo did last year in the playoff. Denver went out and got Russell Wilson. That was Denver's problem for the last 7 years. They didn't have a quarterback who could put up points. The Chargers went out and got defense. That was their problem. They didn't have any defenders. They had offense, but they didn't have defense. Kansas City, we go see how they do. They lost Tyreek Hill. New England, Mac Jones got 1 year under his belt. The Raiders went out and got Devontae Adams. And the Chargers, they got defense with Bryce Callahan, Khalil Mack, and J.C. Jackson. Miami went out and got Tyreek Hill. They already got Devontae Smith. No, they got Jalen Waddle. Philly got Devontae Smith. Baltimore coming back from injuries from last year. Indianapolis went out and got Matt Ryan. Cincinnati returning AFC champions. Cleveland, even with the Deshaun Watson situation, Jacoby Brissett can win enough games to where if Deshaun Watson do come back this year, they still have a chance of making the playoffs. And Tennessee, they won the AFC they were the number 1 seed last year, so I'm going to give them a benefit of going again this year. And even in the NFC, it's not as deep as the AFC, but they have people that they can make the play. A lot of people that can make the playoffs too. Tampa Bay, of course, we go see what they do. They lost Antonio Brown, and we don't know what the fuck Gronkowski gonna do. He say he retiring, but we'll see. And Julian Edelman say if he want to come back, he'll probably go to the Patriots, but I don't believe that shit. They went out and got what's the dude's name? Russell Gage. I think it's Russell Gage. They went and got him from the Falcons. And then New Orleans, Jameis Winston coming back. They went and got some more receivers. Michael Thomas coming back. Minnesota. Now that Devontae Adams is gone from Green Bay, who knows? Like, Green Bay gonna be in the mix, but they might be that top team that they've been the last couple of years. The Rams, of course, are the returning Super Bowl champions. San Francisco, I still don't trust Garoppolo, but for some reason that defense is able to keep them afloat. Washington, Carson Wentz is not a bad quarterback. He's just a bad leader, and he'll have weapons around him in Washington. Dallas got the offense. We'll see if they can stop people on defense, though. Philly got A.J. Brown. They got Devontae Smith. Let's see what Jalen Hurts can do with that. Arizona, now they got Marquise Brown. They got DeAndre Hopkins. I think they still got A.J. Green. So the teams in the NFC, they look like they can make some noise too. That's why I say the most logical thing is just go to a 16-team playoff, top 8 seeds on both sides. No more division leaders automatically get a home playoff game. Everybody gets a bye after week 16, and just go from there. Like, that's the most logical way to do it, where it's even. 1 play 8, 2 play 7, 3 play 6, 4 play 5. Like, just make it even. 16 teams, that's nice and even. No more 12, no more 14, none of that other shit. So those are my reasons why I feel there should be a 16-team playoff. Comment what you think in the comment section. As always, thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. More videos on the way. Trey T out. Peace.